Hey, I'm Parker, and welcome to The Explainer. You know that feeling, right? You open your eyes, it's pitch black, totally silent, and yep, the clock says 3:04 a.m. Again? If that sounds a little too familiar, trust me, you are not the only one. But what if I told you this whole nightly wake-up call isn't just a string of bad luck? Let's get into it. I mean, think about it. What if this isn't random at all? What if it's actually a really specific signal, like a message your body's trying to send you about your health, maybe your hormones, or even your nervous system? That's exactly what we're going to investigate today. And look, if this is happening to you, you are in very, very good company. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine says that nearly 35% of adults, that's more than 1 in 3, struggle with what they call sleep maintenance insomnia. It's that super frustrating feeling of just not being able to stay asleep all night. So, here's our game plan. In this explainer, we're going to crack the case of the 3 a.m. mystery. We'll line up the body's top suspects. We'll figure out when it's time to call in the experts. Then, we'll look at some real, evidence-based solutions. And finally, we'll build a routine to make your sleep 3 a.m. proof. Okay, so to crack any case, you first have to understand the scene of the crime. And in this case, that means understanding the basic biology of how we sleep. See, our sleep isn't just one long snooze. It's actually a cycle of different stages, and each one lasts about 90 minutes. The first half of the night, that's when we get most of our deep, restorative sleep. But right around that 2 to 4 a.m. window, our brain naturally shifts into much lighter sleep stages. This makes us way more likely to be woken up, even by tiny signals coming from inside our own bodies. And this leads to a super important point. If you're waking up at pretty much the same time every single night, that is not a coincidence. That consistency is a huge clue. It's your body telling you, hey, there's a recurring issue here, and it's just strong enough to pull me out of this light sleep. And then you've got your body's internal clock, right? The circadian rhythm. Well, right around 3 a.m., it starts this really subtle morning ramp up. It raises your body temperature just a bit, shifts some hormones around to get you ready for the day. But if your system is already a little off balance, that gentle nudge can feel more like a sudden jolt that wakes you up completely.
All right, so we've examined the scene. Now it's time to bring in our lineup of the usual suspects. We're going to dive into the top 5 physiological culprits behind that unwanted 3 a.m. wake up.
Suspect number 1 is cortisol, which you've probably heard called the stress hormone. Normally, your cortisol is at its lowest at night, and then it peaks in the morning to wake you up. But when you're under chronic stress, that whole system gets messed up, and cortisol can spike hours too early. It's basically like your body's alarm clock is going off in the middle of the night.
Okay, our next suspect is a big one, but it gets overlooked all the time. Unstable blood sugar. If your blood sugar dips too low overnight, your body kind of panics. It releases adrenaline to bring your glucose levels back up. And that adrenaline rush, it's a powerful stimulant. It can wake you up with a jolt, maybe with a racing heart or a sudden feeling of anxiety. This is especially common if you had a sugary snack before bed or maybe skipped dinner.
You know, anxiety doesn't just clock out when you turn off the lights. If you're dealing with a lot of stress, your nervous system can get stuck in this state of hyperarousal, which means it never fully powers down. So as you drift into those lighter sleep stages around 3 a.m., all those anxious thoughts can just bubble right up to the surface and pull you straight out of sleep.
Now, this next one is a huge deal: obstructive sleep apnea. With this condition, your airway actually collapses for brief moments, and your body jolts you awake just enough to start breathing again. This often happens in the early morning when your muscle tone is at its absolute lowest. The crazy thing is, many people don't even know it's happening. They just know they wake up a lot and feel totally wiped out the next day. And finally, let's talk hormones. For women going through perimenopause, a drop in estrogen can really mess with sleep. And night sweats often hit their peak in the early morning hours. And for men, declining testosterone can also fragment sleep. These age-related hormonal shifts are a major but often untalked about reason for these nightly wake-ups.
So, we've identified our suspects. But how do you know if what you're dealing with is just an annoyance or if it's a sign of something that needs more attention? Let's go over the red flags that mean it's probably time to talk to a doctor.
So here are the key signs to watch for. If you're waking up pretty much every single night for more than 3 weeks and you can't get back to sleep within, say, 20 or 30 minutes, that's a good reason to get it checked out. Same goes if you're experiencing physical symptoms like heart palpitations, feeling short of breath, or waking up with bad headaches. And for sure, if it's really tanking your mood and energy during the day.
And I really need you to hear this part. This is critical.
If you wake up and you have chest pain, serious trouble breathing, a sudden and really severe headache, or you feel confused, do not wait. That is an emergency. You need to get immediate medical care.
All right, now for some good news. Once you have a good idea of the cause, you can start to explore real, proven solutions. So let's switch gears from investigating the problem to building a solid action plan.
I want you to think of this table as your ultimate cheat sheet. It connects each of our suspects with science-backed treatments. So for cortisol issues, things like stress reduction are key. For blood sugar problems, something as simple as a small protein snack before bed can make a world of difference. For anxiety, therapies like CBTI are proven to be incredibly effective. And of course, for medical conditions like sleep apnea or hormone imbalances, there are targeted treatments like CPAP or HRT. But you know, the best strategy is always prevention. So for the final piece of our puzzle, let's talk about building a daily routine that just sets you up for deep, uninterrupted sleep from the get-go.
Okay, so what does an ideal 30-minute wind down look like? Well, the goal is pretty simple. Send clear signals to your brain and body that it's time to chill out. Little things like dimming the lights, putting away all the screens, taking a warm bath, or even just scribbling down your worries in a journal can make a massive difference. And beyond that wind down routine, these are kind of the universal rules for good sleep. But if you remember just one thing from all of this, please make it this: consistency. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every single day. Yes, even on the weekends. It is the single most powerful tool you have for keeping that internal body clock stable.
So here's the bottom line. That 3 a.m. wake-up call isn't something you just have to put up with. It's not a curse, it's a clue. Your body is handing you some really valuable data. Your job is to just play detective and figure out what the signal means. Which brings us to the final question I want to leave you with. What signal is your body trying to send you tonight? I really hope this explainer has given you the tools to start finding that answer. If you found this useful, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more explainers just like it. Thanks for watching.